Welcome back to WCS America Premier League, where we are getting ready for our second series of the day. It's going to be IVD puCK against viOLet. Should be a really fun series. Nate, I know you're a big fan of puCK's PVZ.
I'm a big fan of puCK. Been a friend of mine for a long time. And this is, what I think his fourth WCS season that we're seeing him here show up in the Premier League. Yep. He made it to the round of 16 for last season, so he was seeded directly into our round of 32. His PVZ, man, we talked about this before, he was the only player to take a series off of Hyun in Season 1 of WCS America, and as you guys can see, his opponent, of course, is going to be viOLet, quite popular in the American scene as well.
Yes, he is. Of course, viOLet has an interesting history with WCS America. He qualified for the round of 16 in 2013 in Season 1, but he couldn't make it back then. Then in Season 2, he qualified again, but again, viOLet was not able to make the trip to the US. Then Blizzard said, like, hey, well, this can't keep going, you can't just qualify for WCS America round of 16 and then not being able to show up. So in Season 3, he didn't play at all in Premier League. But then this year, he came back and he tried to qualify for Season 1, but he surprisingly lost his challenger match against Top 3-2, but I think back then viOLet was still quite rusty. When he was in Korea, he just didn't really play a lot of StarCraft. For some reason, viOLet loves America that much that when he's here, he loves playing StarCraft, and when he's in Korea, he doesn't. So he didn't look that good. He lost against Top. Top played a very crazy style, and it was a silly series, but still, viOLet did not look like the old viOLet. However, I would say over the last few weeks, he's starting to play better and better, and he had a pretty good showing already at Lone Star Clash, and of course, this time he did qualify for Premier League.
Yeah, this is pretty much the return of viOLet, as we'd put it. He got his visa to come play in America for StarCraft. I believe he's staying in Texas. I've seen him on like Polt's stream. They both practice together quite a bit. And this is one of those situations where viOLet he has to get back on the up and up. We know him as a very successful player, especially, you look at 2012, one of the better years for him. And then coming back after kind of being in the dark for a while, this is one of those big opportunities where he can really show his stuff. But, like we said, puCK, PVZ, definitely his best matchup. When I look at this group overall, I like puCK versus Zerg most, not so much versus Oz. And that also, we have to take into consideration that the way that first series went between puCK and Oz, whoever loses this match has a really, really hard series again.
Yep, because you have to go up against us, and that's going to be really tough. What's funny as well is that I just now think about this, because for some reason I didn't really cross my mind before. puCK and puCK have a lot of history with each other as well. I didn't do the homework on this, but I just know that puCK for a while was kind of complaining that he's always playing puCK. Every qualifier they play, every small event, they always run into each other.
I actually just realized, I read this morning, there was a community thread on Reddit. puCK and puCK are playing a best-of-7 show match, I think, in a week or something from they already have another show match scheduled to play after this group. They just don't stop playing against each other.
It's really cool though, because you get these ongoing stories, and you get statistics that actually matter. Because every now and then you see oh, he is 66% in this matchup. It's well, he played 2 games, But soon puCK versus puCK, there's probably something 30 games or something to pull from. And of course, a lot of it was played in different patches, and it goes back from a while. But it's really fun to see, and I do know that puCK for a while had the upper hand. The last time that I casted them against each other was, I think, in December, when I went to a grassroots event in Louisiana, which is a lot of fun. The Toyota Scion Open, I think it was called, and back then puCK played in the semifinal against puCK, and he won 2-1, but it was a really close series, and it was an enjoyable series as well. So that could be happening today, but first puCK is going to have to defeat viOLet, which is no easy task by all means.
No, not at all. The first map that will kick this series off on, guys, is Overgrowth. And I almost feel like I feel like I could just read it off without, if there was a prompter. Map 2 will be Frost, probably.
I didn't see it yet, but I would be shocked if map 2 is not Frost, and then map 3, map 3 could be something different.
Yeah, we've seen a bit of bouncing around. I think, what is it? We've only seen in maybe one series, one map on Waystation, probably the least played map, or Alters.
Yeah, Waystation is very. We had some challenger games, but yeah, then we're playing best of 5, so then it's more likely. I think in best of 3s, we're probably not going to see a whole lot of Waystation.
Yeah.
What we can say about viOLet is that recently I had the pleasure of casting viOLet at the Lone Star Clash Invitational, which was played just 2-3 weeks ago, the start of May, and he ran into 2 Protoss players that tournament. He defeated puCK in the group stage 2-1. Was a very close series in which I felt that puCK actually could have won, but viOLet did win. And then in the playoffs, viOLet played against Seed as well, the former GSL champion, but of course Seed right now not really the GSL champion that he once upon a time was, even though he's still a great player. viOLet was able to win that series too with a 3-2 score. One of the games was on Overgrowth. I think it was game 5 that lasted like 45 or 50 minutes. viOLet looked good, don't get me wrong, but I didn't feel like it was flawless yet. You know, it was not like, oh, puCK, I have no idea how you're going to make this work against viOLet. I think there's a very realistic opportunity here. I said very, so Russian, that was excellent. I think there's a very realistic opportunity here that viOLet, or that puCK is able to defeat viOLet today.
Very realistic.
Very.
And he is our red Protoss in the bottom left. From IVD Gaming, it is puCK, the man who loves to beat Korean Zergs and PvZ, up against this gentleman in the northeast. I think he's with CSN at this time, same people that manage puCK. It is viOLet.
Yep, currently living in the Big A, Atlanta. I'm not sure if Atlanta is called the Big A, is it?
I don't think so.
I think there are like 5 Big A's in America. I think the Angel Stadium over here in California is called the Big A.
Is it Atlanta? I thought they were in Austin.
No, they're in Atlanta. They used to be in Austin and then they moved around, but I think right now they're in Atlanta. Cool. The Hawks. The Peach State. Damn. The geography.
All right, well, we've got a hatchery first coming out of viOLet. puCK, of course, has opened up with a gateway in his main base. I'd say these two builds are pretty standard, Roddy. Nothing crazy out of either of these players, but we know, or at least puCK definitely has a style that's carried with him for a very long time in this matchup over the course of the last year that's worked out surprisingly well for him. I think we even saw him win a game with like Mass Stalkers versus Hyun on in that last series in Season 1, round of 16.
Yeah, on Frost. puCK is the type of player that just loves running around with like Immortal Sentry Stalker, you know, make sure that he doesn't die against anything. It's a double hatch before a pull, by the way, over here for viOLet. And puCK, at a certain point, like, don't be surprised if puCK in any given moment in this series suddenly walks around with like 46 Blink Stalkers with +3, because he just loves doing that. And it's hard for a Zerg player to transition in the right amount of time to deal with something like that. You know, you might make a few Roaches Hydras first, and then you'd be like, man, this Blink Stalker ball is growing out of control, but now it's almost too late to do something properly against it.
Well, the thing is, for the Zerg player, right, like Stalkers, obviously they're not the highest damage output units, but if you overextend into them, that blink can really punish you, and then trying to do anything like a fast Muto play versus that style gets shut down super fast by the upgraded Blink Stalkers. So puCK's got a build that's versatile, powerful, and of course we've seen him go into this multiple ways, and the gateway opening is just one of many builds we might see him start off with in this series.
Yeah, and just to follow up on what you just said, like, by the time that you see that puCK is indeed heading for that unit composition, trying to suddenly get your Zergling melee upgrades out of something and trying to get Infestors and Ultras, that just takes too much time, and then you're going to die against those very same Blink Stalkers before you actually get there. So it's going to be extremely important for viOLet that he doesn't take any bad fights. And I know that sounds very silly, but against puCK, that it's more important than ever, because he's just excellent when it comes to Blink Stalkers. He really is.
And you know, I'm actually starting to wonder now, puCK is not one of those players, when we look at the build that viOLet's done, this triple hatch for pull, puCK's not really a cannon rusher. So I kind of like that we've already seen an opening like this, because puCK is probably one of the least aggressive Protosses in the very early game, at least in Protoss versus Zerg. So this is, I wonder how much viOLet's been studying him for this.
Well, viOLet did make 4 sets of links, which I'm a little bit surprised by. That's a few more than I expected. Monist, of course, is going to head out. He's going to immediately find this probe, so that is nice for viOLet. puCK has not scouted at all throughout the entirety of this game, so he has no idea. For all he knows, he was playing against, you know, an early pool. Of course, he would have probably seen something by now. But, for, you know, it's possible for puCK that he thinks like, okay, you know, he could very well have speed between 550 and 615, which normally is very standard. Right now, what we see is actually that the extractors haven't been able to, or haven't even finished up yet. So it's a very economic opening over here for viOLet.
Yeah, puCK actually placed a pylon at the top of his main base ramp as those 2 Zerglings squeezed in, just to make sure he wouldn't get into his main base to see much. And, you know, puCK's setup, really, it's just 3 gateways so far. We haven't seen any gas in the natural. He does have the probe on the northwest area of the map, but an Overlord sees it, so I don't think that, like, if puCK's setup, yeah, he's going to take a 3rd base. I was going to say that there's not really much aggressive potential with this, or any tech.
viOLet is making 3 Overlords right now, and he's starting producing slow links. I think he's a tiny bit worried, even though he has been doing a good job in scouting. Like, yeah, you never know if you missed something. This is probably going to be a cannon that's excellent. Oh, the Forge is late. A lot of speedlings being produced right now, or speedlings.
They just started
Zerglings.
speed.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, viOLet didn't see anything of this third base at all. So maybe he sees the gateways finishing. He says you have no tech. This move out onto the map, this could actually really be scaring viOLet. He started his Roach Warren as well. How many more Zerglings is he going to produce? Because obviously with the Mothership Core, you can always recall if he gets overwhelmed, but chasing this army isn't very easy without Zergling speed.
Okay, Forge was a little late to the party, but in barely enough time before these Zerglings show up and be really annoying.
Wow.
He's still able to wipe in the cannon over here, and that is really useful.
He just killed about like maybe 15 Zerglings crossing the center of the map with his sentries and that Mothership Core. puCK, it feels really weird to say it already, but this is just, it seems like a just slightly sloppy play from viOLet. He moves into this third, but he's not going to be able to do much with any of these units.
Yeah. He has produced quite a few links throughout the entire game, but he's done absolutely nothing. I don't think he has killed anything more. Maybe he killed the Zealot. He killed the Zealot and a Probe or something like that. It's just not very effective at all. And I kind of wonder where he's going to go with all of his resources right now. Lair is quite late, just halfway done right now. He does have a Roach Warren, so you could potentially say that he's going to produce a lot of Zerglings and Roaches, but I think by the time that truly kicks in, puCK is going to have so many force fields, he's going to have access to more and more gateway units. Of course, we do see Blink halfway through already. Without too much happening, I'm a little bit worried for viOLet, because I don't think he can be aggressive anymore at all, and if I was him, I would just be happy if I don't die against the first real attack of puCK. What is he going to do with all that money? Hydralisk then immediately, but he has no Evo Chambers.
Yeah, he actually morphed in quite a few more Zerglings. He runs in by that natural area, but still not killing anything more than he's already gotten at the start. Maybe he'll get a probe or two here, but wow, puCK actually warps in 2 more pylons to keep these Zerglings from escaping. puCK hasn't really slipped up at all yet.
Yeah, this is. I kind of feel that this is not going anywhere for viOLet. Now he's starting both his upgrades. It's kind of late as well, and he's going to throw down an infestation pit immediately. When behind, maybe try to survive till Swarmos or something like that. We've seen viOLet play Swarmos a couple of times in Lone Star Clash, or during the Lone Star Clash, I should say. And I think that right now these Zerglings are just here to buy time. The Roaches as well. And I think as soon as his infestation pit finishes up, he's going to start producing Swarmos. There's no robotics facility on the map, so there's no detection. But right now, I'm pretty worried for viOLet, man. I think if the force fields are good for puCK, he's going to be able to have a lot of fun over here.
Yeah, one thing that is nice as far as composition goes, like he needs to get the best force fields, obviously, but there's not really many Zealots, so these Zerglings, if they can get on top of the Stalkers, could do a lot. Here come the Roaches as well. Force fields, the Roaches in place. Zerglings come from the left side, but those Roaches can't attack this Gateway army at all. Gets caught up on just one Stalker. All the Zerglings are cleaned up, and he's just holding viOLet in place. He's like, okay, now I'm ready to deal with your Roaches. Come a little closer. Plus your attack on the way. You know, that infestation, but somebody's not doing anything with it. puCK is just squeezing out so many Stalkers and just producing Roaches into a superior number of Stalkers. This is so hard to stop. That +2 is halfway done too.
Yeah, it's really hard to stop. There are so many Roaches on the production tab for viOLet, but I kind of feel they're all just going to die one by one. With Time Warp, Force Fields, and so many Blink Stalkers over here with +2 on the way, I think this is pretty much curtains already. puCK just doing what he does best, winning games against Zerg with Blink Stalkers. But I must say, Nate, viOLet's play made very little sense.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of questionable decisions. puCK with 29 Stalkers on the map, blasting this third base to smithereens. Roaches continue to stream in, but there's too much here from puCK. Everything dying as it engages. puCK can blink aggressively. He can blink wherever he wants at this point because there doesn't seem to be much anything that viOLet can do to stop him.
I don't think that upgrade even finished up either. I don't think it's going to make the difference either way. But no +1 armor for viOLet either. puCK is up 40 supply. How many Stalkers do we currently have on the map? 30. A forward blink surrounding these Roaches. And just like that, puCK is going to win game number 1 on Overgrowth pretty convincingly in puCK style. But we already touched a little bit on it in the last moments of this game. I felt what viOLet was doing just didn't really make a whole lot of sense. It was a little bit of everything. A few links. Now let's make drones. Let's make a lot of links, but not really pay attention to them, so they all kind of die before they're there. Then make some more links, saving up, very late layer, late upgrades. It was really not going anywhere. And of course, if he would have played against a much more passive Protoss, then maybe we don't really see it, and it's not as painfully obvious as this was right now. Because hey, if you give viOLet maybe another minute, then suddenly he spends his money, and everything falls together. We might still have a real game on our hands. But this really is a compliment to puCK as well. If you give puCK a window of opportunity to win, or at least do a lot of damage, or put himself in a good position, puCK is good enough to capitalize on those opportunities, and he's just going to win.
With how fast he took that third base, especially trying to put out those Zerglings, those slow lings, not even killing like Kinnan. He killed like 2 units in the first 10 minutes of the game. Barely anything. I think it was just like the scouting probe and maybe a zealot that he caught on the map. puCK was, I mean, we could say, I guess the best way to put it is how you said. He didn't really make any mistakes, but viOLet made a lot of questionable decisions. Map number 2 will be King Sejong Station, and I feel like I don't think viOLet needs to change much up, because I still think that puCK isn't going to cannon rush. I don't think puCK's going to proxy a gateway. That's not really puCK's style. So viOLet, maybe go for a similar greedy opening, but don't try to force anything early against puCK.
I would above all I would love to see a real game plan from viOLet, because no matter what he was going for, in the end, whatever it wasn't really connecting. It all could have been done a lot quicker. Okay, the game is... Sorry, I'm just going to fire up this game real quick, make sure viOLet picks Zerg.
All right, well, puCK is up 1-0 in this series, guys, so if he wins this map, he'll go on to play against QXC in the winner's match. How crazy would it be if we had both Koreans in the loser's match of this series? Certainly not what a lot of people would have anticipated, and of course, like you mentioned before, the really cool history between QXC and puCK, but it seems everybody is just about ready to get this game underway here, and I like that we're actually not having Frost as our second map for maybe the first time in a long time.
Yeah, no, it should be good. All right, second map is almost good to go. Once again, curious to see how viOLet is going to do it this time. Most likely, whatever he wants to do, it's going to be a little quicker, and it's all going to transition into each other a little smoother, because I mean, puCK is just a really, really good Protoss player. If you haven't been watching a whole lot of StarCraft in a while, you might remember puCK and be like, ah, that guy, he used to stream a bit, right? Yeah. A long time ago, puCK was just a streamer, and he tried to be fancy with Colossus drops, and it was cute, it was fun, and we always had a good time watching him, but he really stepped up his game. He's been like the epitome of a hard-working Protoss, but he really has been like, well, we're going to have to rehost this game real quick. He's just been putting in all of the hours, and over time, you just see puCK getting better and better and better, and especially in this PvZ matchup, he has defeated some of the biggest names out there, guys like Hyun, guys like Jaedong. You can't underestimate puCK. He's just really, really good.
No, I think that's the best way to put it, is do not underestimate puCK, because when you look at all of his matchups, this is the one in this group. If puCK is only going to beat one player, it has to be viOLet, because PvZ is so good. I'd almost say that puCK, despite that history where QXC generally tends to win versus puCK, probably would prefer to play PvT rather than Protoss versus Protoss. I feel like PvP has kind of been puCK's worst matchup overall for a long time. But we're just going to get everything reset up here and go back into the game.
Yeah, I feel like it's been an in-between. There was a while I think that he struggled a lot against Terran, but he's also always quite vocal about how he doesn't like PvP and how he feels like it's random. But it's ups and downs, and I think that goes for a lot of Protoss players, though. There aren't really a whole lot of Protoss players out there that will say, like, hey, I love PvP and I have been loving it for X amount of time. It kind of comes and goes, also because the matchup and the meta in the matchup changes quite often. But players often still stick to, like, a general playstyle, which works a lot better when certain builds are popular than when others are. I would say it's a 50-50, especially because we're playing on the North American server as well. Also, of course, he's a beast in PvP, and he's always been known as kind of a beast, but still, I think that puCK would have a realistic shot against Oz as well.
Yeah, anything could happen. It actually brings up a really good point. So for Protoss versus Zerg, King Sejong Station, of the maps that have been added for this season's ladder and WCS pool, is probably one of the more unique ones. Is there anything that in particular you'd say you like on King Sejong Station in PvZ, or anything you don't like? Any Zerg builds you're afraid of?
I think in some scenarios, I think Swarmos are pretty scary on this map, especially once they stabilize on their side of the map, and then you have like that middle or high ground. It can be a little bit frustrating, but in general, I think it's a reasonable Protoss map. There is nothing wrong with it. Often I would just say that the better player is going to win.
Oh, well,
it's a pretty good map for Mutalisk as well. We've seen a lot of gnarly Muta switches on this map last week in WCS America.
There's so much space to fly around with them. It's quite... it makes me think about viOLet's game, Revival's games. Those were some gnarly. That's one way to put those Mutalisk switches.
I wonder if viOLet is going to do something like that today, because like Revival, and I think even Nesty did it as well, didn't he?
Everybody's going mutas.
On King's Hero, it's like really old school style. It's just like, we're going to make a bunch of Zerglings and Roaches, and then like, haha, nothing's happening. It's like, bam, 30 Mutalisk. It just like keeps happening. I wonder, like viOLet's actually one of the players that used to already do this in Wings of Liberty. Like I can remember countless of games, viOLet and Antigua Shipyard always the same. It's like open up with a bunch of Zerglings, Roaches, and then like tada, Mudas, surprise. Well, I don't think we're gonna see it today, but I hope so. It would be fun.
That could get crazy with how many stalkers puCK likes to make, guys. As you can see, we're loaded into the game. We're ready to kick off our second map of this best of 3. This is the second match of WCS America Premier League Group C. And spawning in the bottom right position of King Sejong Station, we have our blue Zerg player. It is viOLet. Currently down 0-1 after, well, I'd say the best way to describe it was sloppy play in the first game. His opponent in the top left, the red Protoss player from Team IVD Gaming, it is puCK.
And once again, it wouldn't have been that obvious that viOLet's play was all a little sloppy and it all felt a little late if it wasn't just for the way that puCK plays this, but it's also in general, it's just how puCK plays PvZ, you know? He loves going up to 3 bases, and as soon as his Blink Stalker count grows, he's like, cool, now I'll see what I can do with this. And, you know, if that attack wouldn't have been super successful, it wouldn't have been the end of the world, because he knew he forced out a lot of units already. He knew that he would force out a lot of units for viOLet to even defend that attack. And from that point on, he can always decide to get Storm whenever he feels like it's necessary or something along those lines. So it's also a compliment to puCK that viOLet didn't look that good in game 1. Yeah. Because, you know, if puCK wouldn't have played the same way as he did, then it wouldn't have been as obvious as it was.
And puCK's going to open up once again with a gateway first. A drone scout being seen. We've seen a lot of drone scouts on this map. I think in the Korean scene especially, this is one of those maps where I guess cannon rushes happen a little bit more frequently. But he is going to go hatchery first, and he can at the very least confirm that there's no forge. He doesn't have to worry about any type of rush.
Yeah, most likely it's going to be a very similar opening from puCK. puCK didn't seem worried at all. I must say, this is something I really appreciate from puCK's playstyle. He doesn't seem to be a Protoss player that stresses against Zerg. He's just like, you know, 3 hatch with first, that's fine. I'm just going to do my thing. That probably means that you're not going to be aggressive soon, so I have some time for myself as well. Well, I know there are quite some Protoss players out there, and especially myself. If I see a start of the opening like that, I was like, oh, I'm so far behind economically. Like, what can I do from this point?
So, looking at the map difference, right? The fast third hatchery is on the way before the spawning pool for viOLet. This is the same that we saw in the last game. Do you think this map is one of the ones where puCK can push that fast third nexus as well? Or is it too difficult compared to Overgrowth?
No, I would say that it's even perhaps a little bit easier than Overgrowth. You could say that it's a little more exposed over here, but with some cool SimCity and above all the rush distance by ground is extremely long. So if viOLet wants to do something about it, it would be a massive commitment, and if it doesn't work, then it's almost game over, because then again, you're in a similar scenario where puCK is just going to counterattack with a lot of Blink Stalkers. So I think we're going to see a very, very similar opening phase of this game, but we'll probably see viOLet's real game plan unfold this time.
Yeah. You know, one of the other things that you mentioned, puCK, it definitely exudes an air of confidence in this matchup. I actually got to talk with him a bit before the series yesterday, and he's definitely saying he feels like his PvZ is strong. But I think one of the other things, the way that he plays this matchup, and it kind of showed on the last map with that fast third nexus, he's not scared of being attacked, right? He knows he's a player that would rather defend than be aggressive early on, and then piggyback off of whatever greedy play he was able to get away with to make those later attacks work. And this is what I'm looking forward to see, is when he does actually go for that third base.
Once again, we see those 8 slow Zerglings being produced by viOLet. So far, everything is identical to what we saw before. I find it an interesting number. I'm not sure why I care about it so much, but normally I just see just like a single set of links just to run around, maybe take a Selnaga Watchtower. On a bigger map, you might see like 2 sets of links, but I wonder why he makes 8 slow Zerglings. Well, you know, obviously those links are not going to be able to achieve anything, because without speed, it's just not a threat against the Protoss player with a Mothership Core, a Stalker, maybe a Sentry.
Yeah.
It slows him down a little bit, but it's not a massive investment. I'm just surprised by it, that's all.
Yeah, when I think about 8 slow Zerglings in this context, like if he was scared of a pylon and he found one, 8 links could clean it up very, very quickly. But in this situation, there's a Mothership Core here on the Stalker. You're not going to do any damage to this, and I don't even think this could deny a Nexus if the Mothership Core was there, if you already had a third on the way.
The DPS probably wouldn't be high enough. Either way, we see 2 Sentries and a Zealot in production for puCK, so that kind of gives us a defensive idea as well. And Overlord is going to fly into the main base, and this Sentry will start working on it. Keeping a close eye on viOLet's base on the other side of the map, we see that the Extractors, I believe, went down a tiny bit quicker. Still a lot of drones on the production tab for him. Sorry that I opened it so shortly. He's up 6 workers right now. All kind of standard.
Yeah, and you know, we're not seeing that giant swell of slow links from viOLet. He hasn't, by the way, started anything like Zergling speed. So to me, this looks like we're probably maybe just have the Roach Warren in his lair. A much more cohesive, much more solid build this map than on Overgrowth.
This layer is a lot quicker already as well, though, because in the last game it was like 8 minutes and something, and that layer was only halfway done. Right now it's already going down, so if viOLet decides to, you know, by the time the layer finishes up, immediately throw down Roach speed, by the time that the real attack from puCK would come, this time he will probably have a crazy amount of Roaches out. Because let's not forget, the last game, viOLet could have had so many units, more than he actually had.
Yeah.
He was just like, he was waiting, he was indecisive, his upgrades didn't even line up that perfectly. And then above all, you know, by the time if you get attacked and suddenly you have 22 Roaches on your production tab, then you know that you've just like misplayed the game, because that should not happen.
So we have Zergling speed on the way for viOLet. Obviously, when his lair completes, we'll probably see Roach speed. Do you like this Ling Roach setup versus the style that puCK goes for? Obviously, it's a very no Colossi style for puCK generally, so you'd think Zerglings could be effective, but it doesn't seem to be, not in that first game, very effective.
I don't know, I mean, if I'm gonna say no and viOLet gets a cool surround on all those sentries and he picks them up and then wins the game, then obviously I look very stupid. But if you ask me right now, I don't really like it. I think this is a massive commitment for viOLet. He is making a few drones behind this. Okay, so maybe it's not as massive as I thought it was, but 23 Zerglings, 4 Roaches. puCK is moving forward right now. puCK has to be careful. We see a Hydra den going down as well. It's just kind of crazy. viOLet has always been doing this, though. Don't get me wrong. viOLet has always been the Zerg of like, make a few units, make drones, make a few units, make a few drones. He's always been doing it, but it's crazy how it's not supposed to work on paper. Let's put it like that.
Yeah, it's you know, Zerg's one of those races you usually fully commit to one or the other, and he's gonna see this gateway force on the left side. Another pylon on the way for puCK. +1 attack is not complete just yet either, but his third base is ready. He's got a cannon, as well as some additional gateways finishing up to lock that down. And at the very least, he should be able to force out a lot of units. There's no observer, so he can't clear this creep. And stepping too far forward could be a death sentence for himself. Zergling's trying to run in from behind on the sentries. Force fields a few of those Roaches, but still managed to get a couple hits. Thing picks off just 1 sentry. He's trying to get the sentry in the back. He does grab a second sentry kill.
That was the third one, I think. I think I picked off 3 sentries over here, so that wasn't too bad.
Yeah, not too bad at all. It's really scary to push this far and creep, because +1 attack is about to finish, but he still has about 30 seconds to go for Blink. And all it takes is, you know, just a couple seconds of getting surrounded for you to pretty much throw the game with this type of push.
Okay, but he did force out a lot of units. He also knows with the creep spread this game for viOLet, it's going to be a lot harder to step on creep. So puCK is retreating for now. A couple of pylons are going down. We have the first Hydras on the way, and those Hydras are scary, especially if they can somehow get a good engagement or a good concave. We see viOLet going up to 4 bases as well. The robotics facility is just halfway done. So I would kind of say that it's likely that viOLet is going to go for a big Roach Hydra attack. We also see the Infestation Pit go down, by the way, and see what he can do with it. But if he can't win a game, then he probably needs to get something else ready. Because, of course, by the time that Colossus show up, this army is suddenly not all that intimidating anymore.
No, not at all. +2 attack is on the way. He's continuing to get out these sentries, spending a lot of his gas on those. An observer on the way, waiting to see that robotics bay in case, you know, the Colossi count does become something to consider. Still very, very heavy on Stalkers, and pylons are getting cleaned up by that Hydralisk force. By the way, the Infestation Pit is also completing, so we could either see a very fast movement into that Hive tech for Vipers as a preemptive deterrent to the Colossi, or, as you mentioned, well, as the production tab says, Swarm Hosts.
Yeah, I would have been very surprised if it was Vipers. Then I think it would have all been done a lot quicker, because he could already have Vipers out by now. I think he's just doing this because he's... I mean, if viOLet has shown us at Lone Star that he loves making Swarmos as well, or at least when he feels it's the right decision. And I think this is a reasonable map for Swarmos. However, puCK is going to make a really big attack, at least I think, if he scouts in time. He does still have a lot of sentries. I wonder if he ever saw the Infestation Pit. puCK has not scouted the main base from viOLet at all, so he's playing a little bit of autopilot mode as well. We were critical of Nesty last week, who blindly made like 12 Corruptors, and I feel like a little bit of this is going on right now for puCK. It's more forgiving for him, because these Stalkers, of course, will always shoot at something, and Corruptors, they're not very good if there are no Colossus in air units. But still.
He's got some Zerglings on the left side trying to harass or at least get over towards that third base. Stalker's able to deter that. He's got that attack on the high ground by the fourth base of viOLet as well.
He's
Big
go for
Zealot wave
probably.
moving in.
If I was him, I would just right-click on the hedge with all of these Zealots.
It would be a really nice grab. The Zerg army is coming back to defend against this, and that Queen, sick bait. Zerglings are going to get a surround on some of these Zealots with the Spine Crawlers. I don't think he can grab that hatch anymore.
No, not anymore. Not with his entire army hitting on those Zealots. But at least he slowed down the process a little bit. He pulled viOLet out of position, and above all, he's coming from the north side as well with all of his Stalkers. But
where are the Swarm hosts?
They're coming.
There's just Roaches and Hydras here. He doesn't have the full force of his army with this just yet. Still has enough energy to recall if he does get caught. The Spines are killed, but not that hatchery yet. Maybe he can try to force field away. The Locust, he's going to need to. Time Warps on them. There's the force field to lock him out. The Hydras and Roaches getting killed at this fourth base. But is he going to get the hatchery before he can recall? That's the big question. There's not any sentry energy left to force field. He's just got to target this down. Actually, another Time Warp. Transfuse is being placed in the hatch. He's going to pick it off, but it looks like puCK will get away with at least some of his army. Still lost a lot of supply to make that attack work.
Yeah, that was kind of expensive. There is a second robotics facility on the way. There is a Colossus halfway done. He's getting +3 as well. He's going to try to start microing Blink Stalkers over here on the high ground, which I guess could go well because the Swarmos are quite far away from here. But if I was puCK, I would just start running, and that's exactly what he does. That all could have gone a lot better. I feel if he would have used those Zealots at the start of that fight to work on that hatch, because then he wouldn't have to stick around that long. He would have saved a bunch of his sentries and even a few Stalkers as well.
Yeah, it's just one of those situations where he lost all of his really expensive tech units. He lost all the sentries with that fight. And you still have Stalkers, but Stalkers are historically not the greatest unit versus these Locusts, versus these Swarm hosts. And the fourth base of puCK, I feel like this could be very easily shut down by this this Swarm host.
Yeah, these Locusts are going to work on this Nexus. I don't think there's any way that puCK is ever going to be able to get this base up. He's producing 2 Colossus at a time. You would say normally if your Colossus count is between 5 and 6, you can roast almost any amount of Swarmos or Locusts, at least as long as the Swarmos number is not like absolutely ridiculous. At the same time, a massive Zergling counter over here on the right top side of the map. puCK is able to save most of his probes. So far, not a whole lot of died, but that's a lot of Swarm.
Yeah, those Zealots are trying to go to town on this force, and with those, the upgrades being even between these players, he's having a very hard time breaking them. And this is enough so far from the Lynx, while the Hydralisks come up with the Swarm host, with those waves of Locusts towards the natural, and he's forced to burn a couple force fields. He's got double Colossi production, but this is still an awkward situation. viOLet has just now rebuilt that fourth base.
Yeah, puCK is in a lot of trouble right now. That attack was a pretty big commitment by him, and viOLet just barely hang on there. It was closer than it should have been because the Swarmos were a little bit out of position in the start of the fight, but viOLet's still doing a lot of things right. And right now this is like that scenario where you're losing units against 3 units, you're just trying to get your Colossus count up, but by the time that you finally have enough Colossus to deal with all these Swarmos, there's already the next thing from Zerg that you have to worry about. Whether it's Roach, Hydra, Viper again, you have no High Templars, or if it's going to be Ultralisk or something like that. Or even a Muta switch, it's all scary. I don't think a Muta switch is the best idea against a player who loves Blink Stalkers as much as puCK does, but we'll see.
Yeah, he's got the Spire complete. Stalker's still harassing from the high ground on this fourth base, and puCK is being persistent with trying to find ways to get in little bits of harass here and there, despite having a lot of pylons on this map cleaned up. But the big question is, will he ever be able to push through these Swarm hosts? And I don't see too many ways for him to do it. He's got his best chance when they're off creep, but even now he can't get in. And these Zerglings deterring here, pulling in with the Vipers on the Colossi, not actually able to kill too many of them, so he's still got a good defensive setup.
That's a really bad fight for viOLet. I'm not sure why he's trying to push the issue there that much. He lost a lot of his Roaches and Hydras.
Does he have an observer?
He does still have a fight. There was an observer before. I can take a look where it is right now. It's over here on the... It's above the Swarmo, so it's fine. puCK is doing a really good job here. puCK lost 3,500 resources more than viOLet after that big fight on the left side. Right now it's a lot closer. It's still 1,000. This one Zealot is doing a really good job on the right side of the map. We still have some Stalkers being annoying over here. A few Zealots are going to try to be wiped in, trying to keep this Python alive.
And this is actually really good harass by puCK in all of this. He's keeping a lot of these Zerglings back, and he's trying to trade minerals for minerals so that he can harass this, but that hatchery on the right side is going to get picked off by the +3 Zealot. He gets on top of the Swarm hosts now with these Stalkers blinking in, and he's picked off about half of them overall. He's going to lose a Colossus, bleeding out a few of these Stalkers, but he's taken out the majority of this force. And on the production step, what is the next step here? Mutalisks.
But does he have lava? Yeah, okay, he still has a lot of lava. I'm not sure why he wasn't producing more. I guess it's just a matter of time. He can go up to like 25 Mutilis. We're taking a look at the stock count. It's like 21. These Stalkers have reasonable upgrades as well. There are a few defensive cannons in place. He did lose the Nexus in the long run. I'm not sure against what, but he somehow did lose the Nexus. But I think that puCK can win this game. Mutas are good, don't get me wrong, but it's gonna take a little while before viOLet can get all of his Mutilis. Well, it's not like he has 7 bases.
viOLet's gonna go for the big counter. A lot of Zerglings making their way towards puCK's base. This Colossus actually gonna get almost trapped, stepping up to the high ground. Trying to do some cute micro. There we go. A nice warp in on the ramp with that gateway to keep these Zerglings away, and that's some StarCraft Master Challenge Colossus micro there. Yep. These Zerglings could have done so much more. He's cleaned up a lot of them. Warping in defensive Dark Templar. The Mutas will kill this Colossus, but the big push is still right in viOLet's face. He's going for that third base. He's continuing to try to warp in defensive units. And puCK, is he making this work?
I think he might can, because like base trade scenarios are super scary, don't get me wrong, but what normally helps so much is that the Mutilis take care of everything, and then the Zerglings can actually kill all these buildings in the blink of an eye. But that is not going to happen. It's just the Mutilis for now, because all of the Zerglings keep dying to either Colossus or to DTs. All of these drones are getting force-footed in as well, so that's a drone barbecue party. Army supply right now shows us 87 against 91. The Muta count is growing out of control though. It's gonna go up to 35 at least. Probably a little more than that if you can somehow find gas somewhere. Nah. This is about it, I guess. 35 Mutalisk against 23 Stalkers, 4 Sentries, and a potential Archon.
I'm starting to like viOLet's position in this base trade, though. He's got hatcheries going up all over the place, and I'm starting to worry if this Mutalisk count is too much to defeat for puCK's ground army. The Colossi are all out by themselves. The Stalker count that he has here aren't enough. He kills the Spire, which is great, don't get me wrong, but
he should run with these Stalkers. He should really run.
I don't think he can take this fight. It'd be nice if he could kill the Zerglings with the Colossi, but that'd be all he can really get here. These Stalkers are all going to die.
Okay, he still has a lot of Stalkers at home. He has 15 Stalkers on the other side of the map. In the end, the Roach Warren died. Like, a lot of stuff has died for viOLet. He has 22 drones still on the map right now. puCK is actually mining, because of course, you know, this base wasn't consistently mining. That's a lot of cannons as well. You know, that Stalker ball is going to grow. I would love to see 1 or 2 more Archons. Does he still have the Dark Shrine? I guess he lost it, right?
He does have the 2 Dark Templar. The Overseer is there, so he might just lose these Dark Templar for free. I like this defensive position. Frozen overcharges cast. He can't really attack this. Getting the Cybernetics core is nice. The Stalkers are really the only form of anti-air that he has on the map.
This tower defense is awesome.
Yeah, well, the DTs are killed. And Archon, I think, would be really useful against Zergling Mutalisk. And he's going to clean up the rest of the buildings. There's still a couple gateways here. He can shut down 4 of them. And that'll leave puCK with just the 3 gates at that natural or third-ish base. And, well, he has to rebuild the Cybernetics core. Can he even get a probe out to build it?
Yeah. Well, he has queued it up for a while. I think it's this probe. Which probe is it? Which probe is supposed to build that fiber core? One of these probes not doing his job. Okay, so he's indeed... now he's really trapping in all probes, I think. I'm not sure if that's on purpose or not. I wonder if puCK is aware of the fact that the Cybernetics core is still not on the way. Okay, I think he is right now.
I wonder if puCK... The thing is, viOLet's mining now. viOLet's mining on that left base. He's got a hatchery about to complete on the right side. And these Mutas, like, viOLet doesn't even need to do anything anymore. He can just chill back. All he needs to do is make sure that if puCK leaves his base, he comes in and kills it, or that puCK doesn't take any other bases.
But right now, it's not like viOLet is out-mining puCK badly. I'd say puCK is still mining a little bit more than viOLet is. puCK has a lot of static defenses as well.
These mineral patches are so low. He's broke in just a couple, like maybe a minute or 2.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of them are running quite low.
Yeah, he's going to kill the Assimilator. He's like, yeah, Mutalisks regenerate health very quickly. And I don't think the number of Stalkers he has is enough to contest
but look at
Mutas.
his bank. If he warps in like 10 more Stalkers, then I believe in the power of the Stalker.
It's so hard to call. This is one of the tightest SimCities ever to try to defend.
It's 0-0 Mutalisks though, don't forget. It's 0-0 Mutas against +3 Blink Stalkers. That makes quite a difference.
Yeah. I'm really scared though. I just feel like the map control being so heavily in viOLet's favor. I think it's going to take some seriously impressive micro to get out of this for puCK. The Spire is being rebuilt. Not too much in the bank to rebuild them with, of course. And puCK is really just trying to find places to build more and more of those pylons.
Army supply shows us right now 48 against 76. These Zerglings, they can actually be a bigger problem. We have 22 of them right now. They have 2-3 upgrades, so they are a lot more fierce. I think they even have adrenal glands as well. Let's take a look. Yes, they do.
Mutas are going to poke these pylons, and the thing is, even if you can't kill him, he's spending so much of his bank on pylons that is reducing the number of stalkers he can build. He is starting a nexus on the right side. puCK is going to try to grind this one out, but without being able to make units, it's going to be quite hard.
Gets a Mutalisk there for his effort, so that's something, but they're not very smart building all those pylons over there. I'm not sure why he did it so close to the high ground. The biggest problem right now, I feel, is not necessarily those Mutalisks. I feel it's going to be those Zerglings. He really could use like 2 or 3 Archons, and this is just a completely different game. And look at the gas that he has in the bank. He has a Cyber Core. Of course, he could always lose again, but I wouldn't mind seeing him up in the Twilight. He's going for sentries.
The mutas are headed towards that right side base of puCK. puCK has to defend this. His stalkers are just barely out of position. The Nexus, he could just target this down. He's going to get the probes as well. Loses 1 Mutalisk. The Zerglings are immediately going to be... Okay, splits off a few towards that third base, but...
I mean, those Zerglings are not going to kill all those cannons, and they're not going to do that.
Yeah, you made a really good point with the amount of gas versus minerals. I think actually some Archons would have been really nice to have right now. He's actually baiting this time around. There are those Zerglings!
This is a little too in the open for puCK, I feel. I don't think he can take this fight.
Throws the force fields to stop the Lings, but it's not enough. He's got this around. These mutas are going to chew up all of the stalkers of puCK, trying to escape to that Nexus, warping in just 1 sentry. Photon Overcharge won't save him here. GG. viOLet ties up the series 1-1. And both these matches so far going down to the wire between our Koreans and Americans.
Yeah, that was a very fun and entertaining game. I think in the end, it didn't have to end like that. I felt that puCK, as a Protoss, it's often, you always worry, it's like, oh, playing against Mutalisk, he probably has like 3 hatcheries up and running right now. I really need to do something. But of course, for us, it's a lot easier because we're sitting here and we see the income tab. It's actually like, puCK, you don't really have to do a whole lot right now. You can sit back. Of course, you're going to have to overcome a little bit of time where you're going from your third to your fourth base and your opponent is mining. But you know, how many Mutalisks was he going to produce in that short amount of time? I felt that puCK could have done a little bit better there in the late stage of the game, but it's really hard to keep your cool and stay focused.
There's so much going on, so much you have to focus on that it's really hard to fault either player for any mistakes made at that point in the game because base trades can be so hectic. Trying to manage keeping at least 1 base alive while keeping track of where your opponent's trying to hide their bases, and puCK played it about as well as he could. I think viOLet definitely got his map's worth out of that, though, being able to use the swarm hosts to defend puCK's big attack before making that Mutalisk switch.
It got a little closer than it should have been, because in one moment viOLet was up like 60 supply, and he also he has like 4 bases against 3, and above all he had money in the bank, like 3,500, 2,500, something like that. You're like, this can't go wrong. And then he was pushing the issue a little bit too hard up that ramp towards that natural expand from puCK even. And he lost a lot of Roaches and Hydras, and suddenly the momentum shifted into puCK's favor. The good old Muta switch, well, we spoke about it in the start of the game. It was a little different than we thought it was going to be, but it did still happen.
Yeah, it's it's one of those unfortunate situations as a Protoss player. You're like, yeah, I managed to kill all the swarm hosts off. It looked like he had a really good thing going, trying to grab that 4th base at the same time with his harass, and even getting like those DTs spread around. But we're going to have to see if he can bring it back in the final map of our second match. We're going to play this out on Habitation Station, and no frost.
What's going on over here? This is shocking, guys. Habitation Station in our last map, I think that is the map that works very well for puCK, because if you just think about how short the rush distance is, the moment that puCK is going to feel comfortable, he's going to walk across the map and his blink stalkers are going to be hitting your hatchery by the time that you see them at the Zelnaga Watchtower. That's how quick it's going to go. 1 forward blink, he basically blinks from one side to the other side of the map, Nate. Yeah. Imagine if you could do that from one main to the other one. Wouldn't that be beautiful?
Just when you hide the Nexus for the recall, man. It was a Baby Knight that tried to do that in his WCS Europe match.
Against viCK?
Yeah, he's trying to throw Nexus down. It was actually on King Sejong Station, but...
That's smart.
Yes, that's next level meta, guys. You can see we're loaded in. It's time to see who's going to go up to play against QXC, spawning in the top right position as the blue Zerg player, using them mutas, using them swarm hosts to get himself to the tied series. It is none other than viOLet. Played a fantastic second game after what seemed to be a bit of a sloppy opening. His opponent in the top left, our red Protoss player from Team IBD Gaming. Can he recover from that loss? That was a pretty rough game. It is puCK.
Yeah, it's really fun how that game played out, because it felt like, this is going okay for puCK, and then suddenly it didn't look all that okay anymore at all after it was a small overcommitment trying to kill that fort. And then again, he put himself in a reasonable position in which you could even say like, hey, I think he might be able to do something with it. I think he should have sacrificed those Colossus and Sentries on the bottom side of the map a little quicker and just blink out with your Blink Stalkers, because in that phase, like, Blink Stalkers were the only unit that mattered. There's no way he was going to kill those Mollusk anyway, so you might as well just try to save whatever you can save. And I felt he could have saved like 5 or 6 Stalkers, which in that phase of the game I feel are worth their weight in gold, because every unit was so damn important.
Yeah, it's he was he recalled about maybe 7 or 8 of them back to that third while he built up all those photon cannons, but yeah, those base trade situations, like I understand
really
that.
Hard.
Yeah, they happen every now and again. This drone scout is actually making sure he's not getting proxy gated or anything.
Yeah, I love that, because of course, guys, let's not forget that in the previous games, both games, viOLet went double hatchery before pull, and often Protoss players just look over the build of the histories like, alright, you do it once, you do it twice, well then in game 3 I'm going to build a bunch of gates on your side of the map if you just try to keep doing this. So viOLet is kind of like making sure right now he's not getting proxied, and then he's like, okay, cool, that means I can still go with my good old little economic build.
Yep, and that drone with the Overlord gets a full scout of the main base. You can see everything that's going on. And he heads down to the natural. viOLet's not much of a proxy hatcher, I don't imagine.
No, that would be something. It's different this time though for viOLet. Despite scouting, and he was sending a drone down, at least I thought I was, maybe I'm imagining this, but he's going to follow it up with a Speedling opening this time, Nate. So we see the spawning pool go down and an extractor as well. So he start mining gas. He's going to have quite quick speed. I think it's still going to be down a little bit before the 6-minute mark, by 50 or something like that. So if puCK is not anticipating this, that could get a little dicey. Then again, walling off and habitation station is no rocket science, so you should have a wall off way ahead of time. And if he sees that, it might actually be nice, because I think in general puCK does like seeing that, hey, I'm playing against a speed opening, which means that your opening is a little less economic, so I can just sit back and then still go up to 3 bases the way I want to. Gonna have to be a little more careful, because I know you have speed already, but shouldn't change that much.
Yeah, puCK has shown in the small numbers engagements, at least so far in this series, that he's very capable of staying alive, not losing too much. That Nexus, of course, I believe it was spotted by the Overlord in the natural, so he knows what exactly he's going up against. Zergling speed is on the way, stops mining gas, we won't see any crazy follow-ups. But on this map, you know, the rush distance, you mentioned it, much shorter. This could also work, of course, in the favor of viOLet if he does want to bring a very fast attack.
Yeah, it's kind of funky, because his speed is going to finish up around 620, which is, you know, later than you normally expect it. It's a lot quicker than in the previous games, but it's still late for the regular opening. Even with a hatch first opening, you could get speed a lot quicker than that. So I'm a little bit surprised to see where viOLet wants to take this, and I kind of do feel that he wants to make a big swell of links, but this time just surprise puCK with the fact that, like, hey, this time I did actually open up speed, because you didn't even scout in the previous game, so you're probably not all that worried again. puCK does see that this hatch is a lot later than it was in previous games, so I kind of wonder if that immediately triggers an alert for him and be like, hey, I'm probably playing against the Speedling opening over here.
Yeah, the probe is going to come. It sees the Zerglings moving in. He does not get the block off, though. And does we really have anything other than the Stalker and Sentry? No, he's going to try to get any additional probes that he can. puCK pulls back, loses a second probe. He's going to go for a third one. And actually just gets his run of the Sentry, takes out most of the shields. He barely kills it. And suddenly a very nice pickup for viOLet at the start of this game. The Stalker does not escape. Speed finishes.
Those Zerglings were the most cost-effective Zerglings that we've seen today, that's for sure. It's like 6 to 8 Speedling openings or Zerglings. There were even Slowlings that just ran in, even forcing out another force field over there. This really slowed down puCK so incredibly much, way more than it ever should have. It's like 4 probe kills, a Stalker kill, a Sentry kill. That's way too much.
Yeah, puCK, this is definitely an awkward position to be placed in. Roach Warren is on the way. Overlord goes into the main base of puCK. Sentry's there to shoot it down. More Zerglings on the production tab, though, while he takes another gas. Still no lair from the Korean Zerg player. Yeah. Is this a follow-up attack? Does he anticipate that puCK will go for the third base and then shut it down with his economic advantage?
And this time I think he has a realistic shot at shutting it down as well. We do see a lot of drones behind this on the production map. This is just kind of viOLet. As I said before, he's just one of the very few Zergs who just goes like drones, units, drones, units, drones, units. He doesn't really do one or the other. The SimCity is going to be extremely important for puCK. He needs that Forge to finish up as soon as possible. Zerglings already making their way across the map. He needs to drop a cannon and he needs to wall it off with another pylon, because that cannon is going to be really important.
Yeah, puCK has 2 more gates all the way
No
inside
money.
of his base, but, you know, doesn't have the money to put that cannon down. He keeps adding on additional units, additional production, and the Zerglings are here. He should be able to shut this down with no trouble at all.
There are a
Nexus
lot of
surrounded.
force fields. I think he can save the Nexus.
Yeah, but he's going to have to use a lot. He will have to use a lot of the force fields. He gets a lot of the shields off of it.
viOLet also knows what time it is, doesn't want to give up. All of those links right now, 7 more drones on production tab, so he's going to go up, well, 14 more. He's going to go up to 66. Now I would really love to see you produce a lot of units from this point on, viOLet, because kind of enough is enough when it comes to the drones. This little sentry hit squad this time is maybe making his way across the map. I feel that puCK has more gates. How many gates does he have? Is it just 5? That's 5. With
Yeah,
2 more?
A couple Zerglings tried to hit the front. Yeah, he's got 7 gates.
Yeah,
So
7.
only 2 of them haven't been changed into warp gates
Yeah,
yet.
I feel that this is not necessarily like a fake third base, but I do feel that he wants to be pretty damn aggressive with all of these gateways, because 11 gates is a little more than I expected normally in this phase in the game. But viOLet is ready for this. He's more than ready for this even. With 14 roaches on the production tab, I think viOLet has the pieces in the right place to defend this attack.
Yeah, I feel like puCK, like a best case scenario is he might finds a way to manage to either get the hatchery or some drones. Worst case scenario, he can recall, but already his reinforcing pylons are being eaten up by the trail of Zerglings.
I love that. viOLet sees that pylon being walked in as well on the top of his crib. It's a little bit annoying. Forceful scores are still scary, don't get me wrong, and there is no burrow, there's no roach speed either, but there is not that much DPS in this army from puCK. And above all, as soon as there are no sentries, there is just not that much killing potential. Maybe one more wave of force fields, and then indeed taking out this hatchery is a realistic possibility.
Yeah, he's going for it, targeting it down. He can recall afterwards. He still has a lot of force fields left. There he goes, locking some of these roaches out of position. And now he can start to parse this army apart. Drones being pulled by viOLet to try to save this. And this is puCK's best chance of getting some serious damage done. So much of the army still not fighting. The force fields break, but another solid wave to keep him at bay. He kills all the drones in the third and the third base and recalls with all of his sentries.
Wow, puCK makes such sick attacks that you really don't expect are possible.
Damn.
But excellent use of that very heavy sentry army, making it hard for viOLet to engage. I think viOLet was a little too cautious there. I think sometimes the best thing is just to run in those roaches and keep making roaches behind that, because roaches just don't die that quickly against sentries and stalkers. But it was a very hard army to engage because of all that sentry energy, and suddenly what looked like a real puCK is looking very, very bright right now. He's up 15 workers, he's up a base, he still has most of his sentries, so he can drop a lot of force fields, which he really has to, but he has a photon overcharge to work with. Okay, a couple of defensive force fields go down, and as soon as, you know, he starts getting blink, and look at this, pilot getting here, enduring locust on his side of the map.
Yeah, I think Swarm Hosts on the menu once again for viOLet realizes I'm probably not going to be able to break you with just Roachling. Interesting to note, puCK has not gotten any upgrades off his forges, just now starting +1 attack. So those Lings and Roaches, if he does end up taking another fight reasonably soon, it's going to be hard for him to have any type of advantage.
Yeah, such an interesting game, such an interesting series so far. If you guys just joined us earlier today, we saw puCK defeat Oz. So the winner of this series is going to play against puCK, and of course the loser will go on to play against Oz. A lot on the line. All of these players already get $2,000 for qualifying for Premier League. But if you win today, you get an extra 100 WCS points and already an extra $1,000. And of course, you're still in the running for so much more than just that. So it's a big day for these players. Big day for us, Nate. It's a big day for America.
Big day for America in many ways, of course, as this is a pretty cool group to see for our first American players playing as well. The Swarm Host count is rising quite steadily. 5 more on the way, 5 already out on the map. Enduring Locust is about to complete, so this is becoming one of those types of setups that you can't really break with just gateway units, especially not without that blink upgrade.
I don't think he wants to break it. I think he's just looking for another opportunity of dropping a lot of force fields. And look at this, if he just gets himself, he should be easily able to take out this fourth base.
Yeah, that could actually work very well. He's got his whole army here. He has a recall available.
Yep.
And the next wave of Locust is not going to be there in time to save this hatch. Just a nice pick off for puCK, and he could even still try to press forward with his force fields. There's so much here, so many stalkers that puCK still has a very powerful attacking army. Only thing I'm worried about is because he still doesn't have his blink, of course. So if he does get surrounded, if the Mothership Core gets put out of position, he's in a scary spot. His fourth base is on the way, and I feel like the Zerglings really threaten that. He needs to get back to save that.
I think that's an excellent recall. I felt like he tried to make something happen, but then he realized it's just a few too many locusts. These Zerglings are going to try to do something about this fort base, like you said, and they might actually be able to force the cancel this time. No cancel just yet. He's going to try to save it, but it will die instead. Good force on the other end, though. A lot of roaches.
He's going to get a lot of roaches in exchange for that loss. The force field donut wrapping around these roaches. Blink is complete as well. There is no escape for this Zerg force. He's trying to hit the natural. puCK has a Zealot to defend with a Colossus. viOLet not able to get too much more than that Nexus kill, but 7 more Swarm Hosts. He's really committing to this setup. I feel like, though, on this map, it's a bit easier for puCK to play ball against this composition than King Sage and Station.
Actually, this can be a very good Swarm Host map. For instance, I've seen Snoot play some ridiculous games on this map and a few other Swarm Host users as well. It all just depends as well on like what is the state of the game when we go into the Swarm Host. Like Swarm Host in one game is not necessarily the same unit as in the other game. Well, it is, but it doesn't always represent the true scenario or like the chances of one player. Because right now I feel that puCK is in a pretty okay position. Losing this fort base again would suck a little bit, and I think he is going to lose it. I have no idea why he was so out of position. I kind of lost it while I was just thinking about Swarm Host, but I think that puCK has a realistic opportunity to do something about the Swarm Host in this game. If not, at least get enough time out to get a different answer. We've seen a lot of approaches lately to dealing with Swarm Host. Some people still say that just like the heavy AI units is by far the best. It's of course the most expensive one as well. Just Stalkers alone is not going to cut it. Stalkers and Colossus is probably not going to cut it. Stalkers, Colossus and Storm could cut it if you get the right engagement.
puCK's continuing to press in, but that fourth base, once again, the Roachling hit squad is going for it. The Zealots are here this time, a couple left from the last fight. Another fresh warp-in will be able to buy him a little bit of time. The Stalkers split off to the bottom. The Sentries and Colossi to the top. Is he going to try to snipe these Swarm Hosts? His Observer gets killed by the Spore Crawler. I don't think there's too much he can do here, but maybe he can get this fourth base of the Stalkers and then retreat. puCK is trying to stretch the multitasking and at least the multi-prong attacks that these Swarm Hosts can take as best as possible, and he will escape with a large number of his forces.
One of the most important things that he did over there as well, he reset the creep count completely over here on the north side. We all know that Swarm Hosts, of course, are way more dangerous when creep is close to you than when it's very far away. If those locusts are just being spawned on the other side of the map.
The fourth base gets cancelled again. viOLet microing his roaches' hearts out to deny that economy. And I have to say, it's not like it's the worst thing ever. Like, obviously he's been denied a few times, but puCK has done a reasonable job of keeping his opponent also on the 3-base setup. However, this is just one of those situations. puCK's lost a little bit more resources so far in this game. He'd like to be able to keep up because these Swarm Hosts trade so efficiently versus, well, everything.
Yeah, he's been mining a lot more as well, though, so it's okay to lose a little bit more. He's just resetting the creep count over and over again. He's trying to pick up as many tumors as possible. He's going to drop some few more force fields and just making sure that the creep doesn't get too close to his base. There are Vipers in the mix, and I'm not sure if he knows about this already. He has to be careful. You don't want to lose any Colossus if it's not necessary. Stark's actually going to blink forward and maybe pick up a few of the static defenses over here.
Yeah, I really like how active puCK is with these Stalkers. The Colossus finishes to deter those roaches once again. The Vipers are here, though. Blinks up, gets one Viper kill, forces out the Blinding Cloud from another. So the Colossi are all still alive, and puCK is pushing dangerously far onto this creep, I feel, but
he should go back, I think, because this is not enough. Observer getting abducted as well. Well done there by viOLet, and recall being used immediately. There are a couple of Dark Templars cleaning up these roaches defensively. Way more roaches on the production tab right now. Tunneling Claws being researched too. I still like puCK's position, but he has to make sure that he takes good trades from this point on. Like the next time he sends a Warp Prism in the main and he wipes in a bunch of charge slots, and then he starts pushing on the south side with Storm and Colossus, and of course feedback, really important. I really think he might have enough to break viOLet.
This is a really powerful army, and it's important to keep in mind, guys, there's no Spire on the map. There's no potential for any crazy switches, at least not yet. viOLet is fully committed to making this Swarm Host style work, and just now beginning that Spire as a Warp Prism hits the main base.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. He's going to wipe in a bunch of Zealous charges, finished up. It's very smart. I think it's going to be a borderline impossible with the current army that puCK has to break viOLet on 3 bases. But what he can do is make sure that viOLet stays on 3 bases.
Oh, Roach is getting into the natural. A Colossus comes out and potentially just getting snapped up here by this force. maybe warping some Zealots or DTs to defend 4 of them on the production tab now. He's also got DTs killing the gold base of viOLet, and plenty of Zealots still reinforcing that main base attack. puCK and viOLet both trading blows all over the map as the main base gets cleared of workers. The natural getting cleared of workers by these roaches, and well, viOLet holding on to at least his main base so far.
Yeah, this went a lot better for viOLet than it went for puCK though. viOLet killed a lot of probes with these roaches. Very well done. I love the roach counterattacks in this phase in the game. As a Protoss player, you're not really thinking about it anymore, and then suddenly it strikes you. Look at these High Templars, by the way, really exposed. 2,
Moon
3,
commanding the
4.
Colossi.
No, just 3 High Templars. Still an expensive pick-off. Well done there. viOLet really making these roaches worth it.
Yeah, very, very nice so far. puCK still has the Warp Prism alive, but you know, that Spire is done. There's a lot of gas in the bank. If puCK loses a lot of his economy, we could see something crazy happen like on the last map. Those drones are being rebuilt. He's got a couple storms, but this is still really hard to attack. He's basically got like different levels of static defense to go through before he even gets close to those swarm hosts.
Yeah, it's going to be, and swarm host count is high as well. It's 18, and they're protected by spore crawlers, which is really important, or at least there was. There are spines and there are vipers in the mix. I feel right now if I was puCK, I would just like not try to push it this hard anymore. Just reset creep wherever you can, but don't commit to anything. He lost a lot of workers, and as painful as it is, the best thing he could do right now is just try to reset or climb back in the worker count. He's already up back to 50, he was on 36, so this is fine. Don't lose too many units against all these free units. He's resetting the creep again, very well done, but don't overcommit. There are vipers though, maybe some feedbacks?
Pulls in one of the Colossi as another Roach hit squad with that +3 attack. Hits the 4th base of puCK. This could be a devastating loss for our Protoss player who burns 1 time warp. He's not going to recall back to this 4th base, so this is all but lost.
Maybe he can go to the natural?
Continues to press in, and you know, these Locust waves continue to just push him back, losing a more High Templar. He's got a nice amount of Colossi with the Warp Prism to reinforce, but puCK kind of has to kill him right now.
Yeah, it's gonna be hard. Like, he just doesn't really have any money to reinforce his army properly anymore. viOLet is maxed out. Look at those 9 Corruptors on the production tab as well. There's barely any NDR in this army of puCK. And viOLet with those super effective roach counters, I think he has done it. He has picked puCK apart. puCK overcommitting a few times against these swarmos. 1 more Colossus will get abducted. A lot of High Templars have fallen, and I think as soon as these Corruptors show up, it's going to be really, really hard for puCK to keep his Colossus alive.
Spine Crawlers as well adding in now. The Stalkers blink forward, but they're not going to be able to kill these swarm hosts in time as the Corruptors just start to wail on the Colossi, and that's it. He's got nothing left to deal with the Locust. The 3rd base has been forfeit to the Roaches as well, and viOLet looks like he will go on to play against QXC in the winners match.
Wow, what a series by viOLet. He started off a little slow, but he definitely picked it up in game number 2, and especially in game 3, where he was in a really hard position as well. He was down a base. He was down like 14 workers. And you could say that like the Swarmos is the comeback unit for Zerg, but he did it very well. And it wasn't just the Swarmos. Above all, I feel it was most of his roach counters. He just used those roaches excellent, even before he had money to get tunneling claws and stuff like that. He was already being effective with them. He did a lot of damage to the economy of puCK. He slowed down at 4th base on multiple occasions, and after that it just snowballed out of control once he killed like 25, 30 workers with those roaches.
Yeah, it was really those roach counterattacks. Like, puCK, he had the Dark Shrine that he could use to try to reinforce and defend back home, but it's a bit of a slow response. You warp those units in as you're being attacked, and by that point, the roaches have already done some margin of damage or so. And with that many roaches being set in each wave, just a couple of units, even if you can't kill the Dark Templar, they still don't kill the roaches fast enough to stop him from killing half the probes or a Nexus or, you know, any other variety of tech structure he wants to pick off.
I think the crucial moment in that game where it really flipped or the favor tipped to one side or the other was when that first Warp Prism finally arrived in the main base. He wipes in a bunch of Zealots, and at the same time you have a Roach counter. And it was really unfortunate for puCK, because just when he finally sent in those Zealots, of course there were Spine Crawlers, but normally, you know, if you have 6, 7 Zealots, then you wipe in 4 more, you can overrun that. But a few Roaches just hatched as well. And viOLet is like, ah, cool. So he has Roaches and Spine Crawlers and a Queen. He picks up all these Zealots. Meanwhile, on the other side of the map, his Roaches are like 4 times as effective as those Zealots were from puCK, and I felt that made the big difference. And from that point on, it kind of went from bad to worse.
Yeah, that was just one of those situations. You said it. puCK dropped down to 30-odd probes. Just doesn't have the economy left, and wasn't able to get any static defense set up at the 4th base to defend against the Roach pushes. He wasn't able to keep units there because he had his whole army active. And I kind of have to echo your sentiments when you say, like, puCK maybe try to recuperate, get himself back together, pull himself together as one before making another attack, because every time he pushed out, viOLet found so many different ways to punish him.
Yeah, it was an excellent series by viOLet. Really a cool back and forth, which means that puCK is going to have to go up against us later today in the losers match. But for now, we are getting ready for QXE versus viOLet. Should be some awesome TVZ, and it's coming up right after this small commercial break.